I helped set up Celebrate Recovery at Christ Church. It's something that we did in our previous church, and we felt that some people here at Christ Church felt that this was something that would be really good to bring here to Christ Church and to Southport. So the past year, a group of us have been working through the programme. And it's based on the 12 steps, which for those of you who might know about Alcoholics Anonymous, I can't say that word, AA, many, many years ago, it was built on the 12 steps. So Celebrate Recovery is built on the 12 steps, and it's a Christ-centered program that came out of Saddleback Church in America. So don't switch off because you think it's from America. It's been very much brought into Great Britain, and there's an English section of Celebrate Recovery. So it's very much based here as well as in America. But it's a program that really works for people who are in recovery. Now, for you, you might think people in recovery, oh, that's addicts, that's your drug users, your alcoholics. Well, actually, it isn't. It's for anybody who has got a hurt, a habit, or a hang-up. Because we've all got hurts, haven't we? Or am I just on my own on that one? And we've all got a habit that we do, something that's a repetitive behaviour. And sometimes some of us have got hang-ups because of what has happened in our past or what's happened to us. And it's through this programme, this 12-step programme, that we work through the 12 steps. And at first, it is hard work. But actually, then we grow in that freedom, like we just heard in our reading. We grow in the freedom of Christ because it's through Jesus that we can become who he truly meant us to be. And what I've done is, rather than me waffle on about Celebrate Recovery, I've asked some of my team to come and share their testimony about what Celebrate Recovery's done for them, because would you be interested to hear that? Good. So we've got Dave Griffiths, we've got Karen Lewis, Paul Williams, and Angie Lewis, who are just going to come and share a little snippet of what God has done through Celebrate Recovery for them. So Paul, do you want to go first? And then the others, if you sort of, in an orderly fashion, come up. All right.
Morning, everyone. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, I'll give it a go. Okay, this is my testimony. What a different life I have now. What a difference a year makes. I'm unrecognisable from the scared, emotional and disjointed guy I was when I first started Celebrate Recovery. No programme could fix me until now. I'm proud, and I tell everyone I've completed 12 steps. Every time I was with Alcoholics Anonymous, I relapsed after step 4 every single time. So this is a huge victory for me. God has bridged the gap. He's accepted me back. His guidance, understanding, and love is endless. I wear my crucifix with honour and remembrance of his sacrifice, and I can't ever take that for granted. Everything I have ever had problems with, God has taken ownership of. I thank him deeply from my heart, my mind, my body, and my soul. Moving forward, I now have the skill set and knowledge to help others, to banish their demons and live a more Christ-like existence. I would like to thank Andrea and the whole team of Celebrate Recovery. Without you and God, I would still be a complete train wreck and sleepwalking through life. This is going to sound a bit corny, but we always say this after we share something in CR. I just want to say thank you for listening. Praise God Almighty. It's been emotional.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm not married to Steve. I'm married to Angie. CR should come with a health warning. It could change your life. Why did I do CR? My motive was originally to help others. But to do this, I had to do the course. But I didn't have any hurts, habits, or hang-ups. I was perfect. But then, when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, as a child of the 60s, I thought that sex, drugs, and rock and roll might prove to be an issue. To my surprise, this wasn't the case, although they were in the background. As the course progressed, I discovered that my main hurts, habits, and hang-ups were centered on procrastination and perfectionism. Looking at procrastination, my motto all my life has always been, why do today what can be put off until tomorrow? This clearly was an issue and has to be dealt with. Looking at perfectionism, I thought that this was something to strive for. I've always tried to be a perfectionist. I think that it's perhaps because my father was a watch and clock repairer, and I spent hours of my childhood seeing him repair minute little watches. And if he didn't get it right, then they wouldn't work. But it is striving for the impossible. And that, again, requires attention. Because if you think you're a perfectionist, you think everyone else isn't, and become very critical. So if you want to take your life apart, piece by piece, and rebuild it brick by brick, as Christ would have it, and in the process help others, CR is for you. Two final points on a practical basis. The group thing. In CR, you go into groups and you discuss things, and it's absolutely confidential. But you're thrown in with all sorts of oddballs. David Griffiths, Paul Williams, Steve Lyons, for example. And I barely knew, say, Steve or Paul before the start of this. And I thought, how am I going to share with someone I don't even know very well? But after a year, I must admit that the people I've been sharing with within that group are probably the closest people to me within this congregation. The second point is, I'm a glass half full type of a bloke. Somewhat pessimistic, a bit like Eeyore. But CR is the first church activity since I became a Christian over 50 years ago that I can be genuinely enthusiastic and optimistic about. And I can thoroughly recommend it.
Hi, I'm Dave Griffiths, and first part of mine is somewhat similar to Keren's experience. I came on to Celebrate Recovery to help other people. You might remember about 15 months ago, the call went out, anybody willing to be part of this, to come to a meeting to see what goes on. Because I'd had issues, and everything was under control. It's fine. I've got everything under control. So I came to help other people. But on the team, when you're on part of the team, you're also a full participant in the course itself. And so therefore, that's fine. I'm happy about that. Week 1, what do we look at? We look at something that we probably all enjoy frequently: denial. And the tag on denial was, we admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviours. Life had become unmanageable. And that got me thinking about stuff that I had conveniently buried, and things that in our culture is man up and don't let these things bother you. And not that CR looks for us to dig up healed hurts of the past. It doesn't do that. But sometimes, there's stuff that niggles away, and that can take the shine off life, and it can bother us in certain circumstances, certain situations. And I think that some of the judgments that I was making on a frequent basis were based on perhaps some of the hurts or some of the habits that I had previously but had not fully dealt with them. I had found out through this that past hurts, hang-ups and habits hold us back, and they do hold us back, and they also trip us up. And I found this to be a reality for myself now. It's easy, I think, to build up resentments and positions of being remote from things a little bit to protect yourself in situations. I had previously, many years ago, been divorced. I had an addiction to nicotine, which for some people isn't a great problem, but for me it was, because I knew that cigarettes told me when I would smoke. I didn't make the decision. And God one day said to me, okay, fine, we've dealt with some other stuff, now I want you to deal with this. And it's something that I have struggled with for the last 21 years now. And coming through Celebrate Recovery really helped me to understand where God was in this and where God wanted to be in this. As has already been said, Andrea said that we go through all the different steps that we might go through on a course similar like Alcoholics Anonymous. But the good thing about this is that in part of that program is that when we're in our small groups, we open up and there is no judgment. There is no judgment. And I was hearing on the telly this morning on the news about some guys, about men who commit suicide. And about you never come to Celebrate Recovery and are told to man up about something. You come to Celebrate Recovery because what it's going to do for you, it's not about being better than someone else. It's about being better than you were yesterday. That's what Celebrate Recovery is for. You're not going to be told, for goodness sake, that's an insignificant issue by other people who've got bigger issues you might consider. Because it's an issue for you, an issue for me, that takes away some of the joy of life and some of the freedom of life. And Christ wants to make us free. And it's in some of these small things that we tend to bury that can really make a big difference. I've got a new understanding and a new freeing because I've learnt of a new way of perceiving those things that have held me back, and the stigma I've perceived of those things doesn't exist for me anymore, because it's not about what other people get from it, what other people would say of it. It's about my relationship with God. I think that this is a great course because folks who don't know the Lord can come and benefit greatly from this course, and quite likely, almost certainly, by the end of the course, they would find Christ in their lives as well through it. What have you got to lose by coming to CR? Well, it's your sense of isolation. Things that we struggle with isolate us, and CR frees you from that. It's a great course.
think for me, and I think that's been demonstrated just now in what people have just said, is that Celebrate Recovery demonstrates the healing power of our risen Lord Jesus Christ. And this last couple of years have been for me, well, probably only so many months, having a sense of loss to recover from. And when you're a bit, not that I'm a lot, in the limelight, you kind of feel you've got to always be together here, in here. And I know I haven't been. But you carry on. Because you don't want to make a fuss. And you should be all right anyway, because the people you love are in heaven, so it's fine. But anyway, one of the things that has really helped me for the whole of the Celebrate Recovery time of training has been the Celebrate Recovery prayer, which is called the Serenity Prayer. And Jane might just put it up for you now. Because it teaches you to live one day at a time. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You probably a lot of you know that bit, don't you? But it actually goes on. Living one day at a time. And it says, taking as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. And then trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will. Isn't that interesting, the last bit? So that I may be reasonably happy in this life, and supremely happy with you forever in the next. That prayer is very powerful. Very powerful, and it's really helped me a huge amount. And when I'm struggling, and I actually met one of our Celebrate people in town a month or so ago, and this person said, I'm really missing Celebrate Recovery. I'm struggling a bit. And I said, the way I'm coping with it, with life at the moment, is say the Serenity Prayer when you're struggling. And it somehow has that healing in it that is so precious. So if you're okay with that, would you now say it with me? Okay, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
It's great when we hear stories, isn't it? Because actually, there's real power in a story. We all have a story to tell. And in Celebrate Recovery, our story, our own story, is really important. And it's very much part of Celebrate Recovery. So I'm not sure what's going through your mind at the moment. Maybe you still think it's not for you, but perhaps if it isn't for you, you might know somebody who this might help. And you've all been given a lovely little leaflet to take away, and it explains a couple of things in there for you. But Dave alluded to the 12 steps, and step 1 says we admit that we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviours, that our lives have become unmanageable. And for me, like many others, I thought I've got everything under control. And as Dave said, that first teaching is about denial. And actually, as Christians, we think we've got everything under control. It doesn't matter where we live, who we are, how old we are. We think sometimes because we've got Jesus, we've got this nailed and we've got this sorted. But actually, it's not necessarily over those addictions. It's those compulsive behaviors, those things that we do. What is it that drives us? Maybe we love coffee, and I've got to have that cup of coffee, and I can't live without that coffee. Maybe we love going out and spending a bit of money, a bit of retail therapy. Oh, well, I can just buy that, or I'll just get that. Or maybe we have codependency behaviors, or we like the odd little drink, or that we use food in a negative way. Or just one more cake, or just one more biscuit. Well, no one knows because I'm on my own. Because actually, some of these behaviors we do in the hidden place. But actually, there's one person that's watching us, and that's Jesus. And in Celebrate Recovery, as in the AA and CA and the other programs, Jesus is often referred to as our higher power. Because people who come to Celebrate Recovery, although we're Christians, we can't assume that they're Christians. So we call Jesus the higher power. But for me personally, my higher power is Jesus Christ. And I know that whatever I do in that hidden place, he can see my behaviors. When I go to the shops and I think, I'll just buy that. It's okay, we've got enough money. I'll just use the credit card, it'll be fine. I can pay it off next month. But then next month comes and I've bought something else, and before I know it, I'm a year down the line and I've racked up a whole load of debt. But you see, I'm a Christian and I've got everything under control because I'm not addicted. But actually I am. I did have an addiction. It was a compulsive behavior. I had to go and spend money because for a moment it made me feel okay. In Celebrate Recovery, we have a thing, we love acrostics. You know what an acrostic is? It breaks down a word. So denial, I'm going to break down denial for you. You can fall asleep if you want to. We're going to finish soon. But denial, so D in denial means it stands for disabling our feelings. Because actually, when we deny something, we suppress them, we hide them. They paralyze us because they disable our feelings. The E in denial is energy lost. We're too busy trying to do other things. We've got this sorted. I don't need to know. It's that anxiety. It's a major side effect of denial. It's wasted energy dealing with past hurts and feelings, the fear of the future. We're just wasting those energies because we're in denial. And the N negates growth. It stops us growing in Jesus. We cannot grow in Jesus unless we're willing to step out of our addictive behaviors. The I in denial, so we've got D, E, N, and the I, it isolates us from God. You know, because we do things in isolation, because no one can see us, our secrets and our denials separate us from true fellowship with God. Actually, they isolate us. The A alienates us from our relationships. We think we're getting away with it because nobody knows. No one can see. Isolation sets in because we believe that we don't need others. We can do this on our own. And actually, we do need others. Jesus calls us to be in fellowship with others. And the L in denial lengthens the pain. That false belief that denial protects us from our pain. Well, it doesn't. Well, in reality, actually, denial allows us to fester. And we end up growing in guilt and shame because we feel ashamed. Oh my goodness, I don't want anyone to know that, you know what, I've got a credit card and it's got debt on. That's wrong. I don't want anyone to know that. But for those people who are in recovery or we've got these addictive behaviors, we don't want anyone to know. So my challenge to you today is, what are you in denial for? What has gone on in your past? What's the hurt that's hurting you? What's that habit that you've got? And what's your hang-up, maybe? Celebrate Recovery might not be something that you want to take part in at the moment. but we're all in denial for something. Thank you. I first heard about Celebrate Recovery last summer, and I thought I want to know more about that because it might help me, and in that I might be able to help someone else as well. And what attracted me to it was that it was a Christ-centred programme. It was an opportunity to grow as a Christian, and it was offering freedom from hurts, habits and hang-ups. And that's what Jesus promises us, isn't it? It's freedom. And I knew in certain areas of my life I wasn't as free as I should be. Romans 12 verse 2 says, and this is from the Message translation, don't become so adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God and you'll be changed from the inside out. And so Celebrate Recovery challenges the story that society is telling us and thought patterns that we've adopted that we think are okay. And it teaches us to be free in Christ. The second thing was that I was confident in the authors, who were John Baker and Rick Warren, and they wrote the programme, and they're leaders of the Saddleback Church in California. And what they did is they took the 12-step programme from AA and the other rehab programmes, and they added the missing piece, which is Jesus. And the material continually states that it is a Christ-centred programme. And what they did, they also created a safe place for not just people with alcohol and drug issues, but also those struggling with eating disorders, anger, overspending, guilt, lying, and the list goes on. The list includes anything really that you're perhaps hiding from polite society, that we don't like to show when we're out. But inside, it could be crippling you. And that's what appealed to me about the programme, that it was going to be a place to be real. I had doubts as well. I wondered whether if I confessed all, people might actually change their behaviour towards me. If I stand up and declare my hurts, hang-ups and habits, are they going to pity me or label me? I was prepared to share my struggles, but I certainly didn't want to be defined by them. And in my experience, none of that happened. I was also concerned about confidentiality. If I handed someone a delicate issue of mine, what were they going to do with it? Would it be the talk of church on Sunday? Would they be glib about it? Would it be a bidding war as to who had the biggest problem? But confidentiality is emphasised continually throughout the course and each week as well. And in my experience, when people began to share their stories and they opened up and they were honest, you began to value that. And actually what you wanted to do was protect their story. So, my personal journey. First, I thought it was about bad eating habits. Simple, reasonably straightforward. But as the weeks passed, I realised it was probably more complex than that. It's probably more about self-image, self-worth, also unhelpful perfectionist tendencies, and comparing myself to others. Now, some of these have a positive side. You know, if you're like to be a perfectionist about something, that's not necessarily a bad thing. For example, I'd rather a surgeon who was a perfectionist operated on me rather than someone who was a bit slapdash. So these things generally aren't a bad thing. But the problem comes when it starts taking up too much mental energy. And that's what I found. I was spending too much time thinking about my self-image and my self-worth. And it wasn't a vanity thing. It was about feeling negative about myself and feeling overcritical. And it probably started in my teens, rooted in physical appearance and being compared to other girls. And even as an adult, despite being slim, I was never happy with myself.
Well, now there's an elephant in the room, and I'm no longer a size 10. So the whole issue has been exacerbated by a little weight gain. That was rather a loud laugh from Rob. So how has Celebrate Recovery helped me? It uses biblical teaching and Bible verses to change thinking. And a verse that's been helpful to me is 2 Corinthians 6:18, which says, I am a daughter of the Lord Almighty. And it teaches us how Christ sees you, how he sees me, and how he values me. And that's something that I need to dig into more. And each week there's a tool that we use, which I also found very helpful. And if you're here at the 9:30, you will have heard Angie talk about it. And it's the Serenity Prayer. And we say this every week as well. And I'll just read you the beginning of it, which is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the prayer continues. I'm sure many of you know it. And so in that, I had to accept certain things. I had to work through my issue and accept that I wasn't my preferred shape, which was an up and down straight shape. And I never would be. Doesn't matter how slim I was, that's not my body shape. The second thing is I have to accept that I have, at the moment, chronic migraines. And that means I have to take medication. And that gives me a propensity to put on weight. And those are things that I just can't change at the moment. There are things I can change though. I am trying to lose a bit of weight, and I've joined Weight Watchers. I mean, you don't go if you're slim, do you? Anyway, and I've joined a gym and a go, which is quite important, not just joining. However, progress has been a bit slow, but I do feel more at peace with myself. I've grown in my relationship with God, and I know my journey isn't finished yet. And I was given this verse yesterday, which is Philippians 1 verse 6, which says, be confident in this, that he who began a work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Thank you.
When Andrea asked me to give my testimony of CR, I asked her what kind of thing to say, and she made it quite simple, and she just said, what would people want to know about what it's like doing CR and what it was like for you, for me? And I really started going to CR basically because it was on a Monday. And I'd been going to a small group on a Thursday, which I liked and which was challenging, but it was starting to get difficult to go on Thursdays because of work. I'm a teacher, and so I would have books to mark, and I'd be going to my small group and then going home to mark books and change lesson plans, and it was just, I couldn't really manage it. And I started missing them, and it wasn't good. So I wanted something at the start of the week. And I'd been becoming more aware, and I was getting annoyed with myself, that spiritually I was just treading water. Nothing was happening, and I could look back to when I'd been more spiritually hungry, and I didn't see that in myself anymore, and I wanted to be closer to God. So I was probably coming in at CR from a different angle, but I think everyone was really. And so I went to the first meeting, and I discovered this CR on a Monday night was Celebrate Recovery. And I thought, that sounds a bit American. And I thought, do I really need this? Because what sprang to mind are drugs and alcohol, like the juicy ones. But then in the first session, we were given this sheet, which you can't see the words, but it was a list of things that can affect us or control us, really. And looking at that, it was like I'd been hit by a bus. And I'd looked down that list and I just thought, oh, and yep, to about half of the things on the list. Things that made me feel pretty uncomfortable, really. And I could see guilt on there, and I could see the need to control and overspending and perfectionism. But actually, it was even the first one on the list that made me the most uncomfortable, and that was overeating. And I just thought about how much time I would spend thinking about, oh, what was I going to have to eat? And times when I would do it secretly and hiding wrappers and things that I am ashamed of. And it was the habit that I thought I've got to look at that one first. And basically, Celebrate Recovery starts with being honest with yourself. And then the recovery part is when you can get that hang-up or that habit under control, and so you can control it rather than it controls you. But of course, it's actually God that has got the power to tackle that issue and to help you control that issue. That can have been there for years, and I know it for me as well. It's been years. And when I'd been honest, starting off honest with myself about how much actually it was bothering me, and started praying about it. And this was in the CR on the Monday, but also obviously it's there all week, and praying about it. And for me it was a self-control issue, and that's pretty much what it boiled down to. And I was prayed with, and somehow I started getting some semblings of that self-control. And I also joined a fat club, which has helped, and I get skitted every week by Paul going to my fat club. But it's the self-control side. But then I was thinking, this is all a bit shallow, to be honest, Kate. And I was so concerned thinking about what the outside looks like, and really the inside matters a lot more. Which one is it? And really I saw that the real issue that I should have been looking at was how I compare myself to other people, and how maybe I only feel all right when I think I look all right. But God's interested in me from the inside, and he sees me already, warts and all, and loves me like that. And actually, God just wants me to be closer to him. And when you're closer to him, then you can handle the things that life throws at you. Realise that at those Monday CR meetings, you could take off your, oh yes, I'm fine mask, and say, well actually no, I am really struggling with, last year, Heather dying. And things at work are a nightmare, and I'm finding it really difficult with my kids. And so God can help me, once I'm not so caught up in my other matters, tackle those things. But CR is not just kind of like a moan fest where the leaders or other people are not there to fix me. They're there, it's kind of to give me teaching and tools. So if I'm being honest, I can, with God in me, tackle those things, the things that he knows that I really need, not just what I kind of think. And Celebrate Recovery has those routines that you follow, and you would read that serenity prayer every week, and those same Bible verses, but just each week different things leapt out at me like I'd never heard them before, read them before. And what I think with it as well is you get out of things what you put into them, and I am looking forward to going through it again, starting in September, and using it as in the week, spending more time chewing over those things, praying over those things. So then I get closer to God, let him get closer to me, and the changes that I want, the changes that God knows I need, God willing, they can kind of like we can keep heading towards those things. Thank you.